This is going to sound impossible, and quite frankly, it's going to sound a little ridiculous, but just a simple negative thought alone can make your ETD symptoms worse and tinnitus. And this is going to really make a lot of you think, oh, well, I guess I'm just messed up then. I don't think I can fix my thoughts. Well, I do want to challenge that, because when I was struggling with ETD and I was struggling with tinnitus symptoms and just the dizziness, the clogged feelings, all these things that a lot of you are dealing with, just a simple thought alone would just fire off all my symptoms. It wasn't until I got more aware of like what I was doing and where my thoughts were going that things started to slowly taper itself off a little bit. Now, you're almost going to have to be this meditational mindfulness person, if you're not already, to really fight this thing off. Like, you have to fight ETD off with the least amount of resistance. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to try to explain this so I don't lose a lot of you here. When I was dealing with it, it was like the minute I would feel symptoms starting to rise, I would think about, what am I doing right now? What am I thinking about right now? And almost every single time that I took a little step back and thought, what am I thinking about? And it was always something related to either work or something I had scheduled later that day or tomorrow, or an obligation I have to resolve. And I always, it never failed that every time I would start going into this anxiety land, which is, everybody knows anxiety is kind of like anticipating something that's not even in the present state. So you're anticipating a stressor that's not even there yet, or the outcome of it hasn't even happened, or probably won't happen. And you're already manifesting these feelings of just defeat and distraught. And it's like, I realized what the symptoms of ETD, the reason why when you go in the doctor's office, they put things in your ears and they do pressure tests and they do all these different exams, and they always come back and tell you, well, you seem fine, everything's fine. It's because it's hard to really detect these type of things. And this is why I dedicated a lot to this channel, because honestly, it's really one of those things where it's going to be a battle between your mind and your symptoms at this point in time. So your mind and your body, what you think is what you feel, and vice versa. So, and then what you feel, you're going to think about it. You have to get in between both of those things. Now, it's going to be very challenging. You're going to have to make your brain sweat. You're going to really have to dive into your mental capacity. You're going to have to dive into the core of your mental state, and you're going to have to do the very best you can. And some of you watching this video are probably going to wait for that punchline of something that's going to help. But in this video, I really just want to talk about mindfulness and the health side of things really right now, because a lot of you are probably tired of being recommended things. Just last video or so, I recommended a product that could really help with bringing pressure, relieving pressure and bringing blood circulation to the inner ear. But some of you are just at the point where you're like, I've tried enough, I've done enough, I've taken enough. I really need to get to a point where I can do something like right now. And so this is what this video is really going to be about, giving you something that you can do right now. Doesn't cost you a thing, doesn't require you to go anywhere, doesn't require you to do anything outside of your schedule other than just a few things here. And these things are really just changing the mindset, changing your approach to health for a minute here. You have to do your very, very best here to hear what I'm saying. When you're in this state of ETD shock, which is not like any other shock, let's be honest. Like, I haven't had everything that happened to me in this lifetime yet, but I will tell you, this particular incident, this incident with ETD was one of those things that woke me up. It wasn't life-threatening, at least it wasn't at the time. Hopefully, it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to seek, like, definitely needed to seek a lot of medical care, but it wasn't something that I felt like I wasn't going to overcome for some reason. That there was a little bit about me in there that felt like I can overcome this. I just don't know when. The frustration was building up clearly as well, but it was never really something in my head where I felt like giving up. And I think a lot of you are telling yourself, you're basically programming yourself to say, I'm going to have this forever. And do I consider myself an elite person compared to all of you? Not at all. Not even one bit. In fact, it dawned on me later as I started to go through it that the more I start to defeat myself, the more ETD wins, and vice versa. ETD starts winning. I defeat myself by thinking I can't fight this thing back. And by fighting this thing back is that every little crunching sound, clicking sound, weird feeling you get, don't panic. Don't over examine everything. Don't over stress everything. Now you can say, oh, well, that's simple for you to say. You're in this video, you're watching this video and you're feeling good now. But I wasn't always feeling good. That's the thing. I was in the same position all of you are in. I was never this guy that just had it for a day or two and I was just better the next day. I was in a really bad state. I all the local urgent cares, I knew all of them. I knew where they were. I knew everybody that worked there. It was really not a good lifestyle. It was not a good situation, especially being a new father. You couldn't imagine that this wasn't a struggle. It was definitely a struggle. But I dedicate that now to all of you because I know that all the things I recommend are still very potent. They're very valuable to me. But at the end of the day, it's like, are you going to run this race or are you going to just watch others run the race? There's going to be a point in time where you got to lace up your sneakers. You got to go out there on the field. You got to go out there and run. You got to go in there and compete. Are you going to finish the race this first time? Probably not. Are you going to finish it the second time? Debatable. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to run the race. And the race in this one is to race to the healing. And I can recommend thousands of products, other videos that I've seen on YouTube with thousands of products, thousands of techniques, channels that have done thousands to millions of views and channel, that have shown you what you should be doing. At the end of the day, it really is about getting the mind right. It's the prerequisite to everything. If you don't get the mind right, it's going to be a really hard fought battle that's going to inevitably put you out of commission to succeed through this thing. And that's why I really want all of you to understand this video is really not to recommend anything, but to recommend advice. If anything, not a product, but advice. Because I slowly saw myself going through this, how the mental side of things started to improve. It's not a coincidence that all of a sudden when my mental health started to gain some traction, I started to feel a little good about what was going on. It's just there's no question that played a huge part in my healing. Honestly, it got to the point because there was times where I was really at the lowest of the lowest, and I was like, every little issue I feel, every little thing I feel, I'm just going to just soak all that in and be in this state of mind for the longest period of time, trying to figure out why that happened to me. Why you really have to get to a point where you challenge everything you feel. You're like, oh, I feel this way, but I still have things to do. I feel this way, but I still have the fight here. I can't give up. I can't throw my hands up. You got to get to that point. And then when you start feeling good, you also have to get to the point where when you feel good, you don't like wonder why you feel good or questioning, oh, am I supposed to feel this good? You really got to get to a point where you are sure of yourself, and that's going to come with time. Step one is to be aware that you need to do it. Literally, that's really the first step. Be aware that in order to defeat ETD and tinnitus, it's being aware where your mind needs to be. If your mind is floating all over the place and you're telling yourself you're not going to get through this is the norm, your body really feeds off that energy. It feeds off of the things that you tell it. And if you're telling your body those things, it's only going to limit you to healing, because you really have to get to a point where you're just like a lot of children out there have mastered this, because they're so consumed about what they're doing, what they're touching, what they're seeing, what they're smelling, that whatever they even felt before kind of dissipates, because they're so focused on what they need to do, what stimulates them in a positive way. And I think that separates the adult from the child, is that we can't separate what we feel with what we're doing, because we're so worried about what we're doing. We're so stuck in here and in the clouds that we can't see what we're doing, and we can't be consumed of the good that's around us. Like children can find good in everything. And you almost have to develop a childlike mentality in order to really heal from ETD in some way. You have to keep going on with your day like nothing's wrong. I mean, don't fake it, obviously. It's okay to be open about it, but don't take it into a point. Don't take your day on to the point where you're like, I can't do this because of that. I can't do this because of that. But at the end of the day, it's all a mental game, and you all are strong enough to succeed and strong enough to get through it. So I hope this video was very helpful for you. If it was, please take time to subscribe to the channel. I try to bring content as often as possible. But in the meantime, I'm going to step out of the Jaye Wellness Studio and leave you in good hands with this video. Like anything else, folks, we're here to simply go back to the basics. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.